What is your bullet ducking dodged moment? My great-great-grandfather had a ticket for the Titanic, but met my great-great-grandmother who was going to America sooner. He decided he could not wait to see her again and bought a ticket for an earlier boat. Iceberg dodged. Back when I was young and impressionable, someone stopped me on the street and asked if I did like to do a free personality test. After enthusiastically filling out the answers to a long list of probing questions, the person who had approached me asked how old I was. Since I was under 18, they said they did have to get a parent's permission to give me my results. They call my mom, who tells them to stick their test up their ass or words to that effect, then proceeds to give me an extended talking to about trusting strange people with my personal information. And that is how I learned who the Church of Scientology were. Went on a date once with the photographer from my cousin's wedding. I was in the wedding party, so we spent much of the day chatting. He was good looking and amicable, so I figured why not. We went for coffee and it was perfectly pleasant. We chatted about the usual stuff. He told me more about his upcoming photo tour of Europe. Nothing unusual, but nothing special either. Got an awkward one-armed hug at the end and he said we had get in touch when he was back, which was about 4 months' time. 4 months came and went and I just let it go. It had been pleasant but tepid and I guess I kinda forgot about it. Jump ahead a few years and I am browsing the news and I see a familiar face. The photographer, who is now in jail for an unprecedented collection of unique child porn that he made, more of which, authorities guessed, was on the hard drive with the military-level encryption they did seize that police still could not crack years later. That photography tour of Europe, yeah, he was in Thailand. Cool. Well, that escalated quickly to disturbing levels. I had trouble breathing and had been wheezing for a few months. Figured it was just bronchitis that I get all the time and got some antibiotics. Figured what the heck. I guess I should ask a doctor, you know. People trained in figuring this stuff out. Found a tumor the size of a pineapple wrapped around my heart and lungs. Duck. Definitely should have gone earlier, but so glad I actually decided to go. Edit. I am alive, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Laughing. For those commenting about the size of the tumor, it was a little over 5×3 and went from my trachea to my diaphragm. Now, 2.5 years cancer-free, actually, as of yesterday. Did not realize until today. Laughing. Weird coincidence. At the time, it was very not good. I got to watch my pericardial drain surgery that night, because they were afraid anesthesia would make my trachea collapse. So I got to watch a surgery on myself. Awake. Had to be at a 45-degree angle or the weight of the tumor pressed on my lungs and under nothing except a local nest for the catheter site. I like to think it is something not many people can say they have done. Advancing the catheter felt like slowly having the wind knocked out of you, but without the impact. I could actually feel almost exactly where it was as it went, probably one of the most unique feelings I have ever felt. I could also feel the pop when they pierced my pericardium, and I could feel a very slight pressure relief as they drained the fluid initially. So in 2006 I was losing weight so that I could finally afford health insurance. I figured out that if I lost 60 pounds, a $5,000 deductible plan would be roughly $100 more cheaper. In 2007 I've lost the weight and I get insurance on February 1st and go to get my first checkup in a long while. Everything comes back clean. March 15th I go home and my dad, a physician, does not like the look of me and takes me to get some scans. Turns out the weight I lost was due to cancer and the previous doc had ducked up and not run the right tests. But because he had ducked up and given me a clean bill of health, the insurance company could not claim that the cancer was a pre-existing condition despite my having insurance for 90 days. Cancer is all gone. But I did not get stuck with a $500,000 hospital bill because of a doc who ducked up. I was making a day trip in Colorado to do some sightseeing. It was just me and the dog, driving a few hours over Wolf Creek Pass. I felt a little off and stopped up near the top of the pass to get some fresh air at a waterfall. I figured I was just sleepy and at altitude, so I decided to actually hike the mile-round trip to the falls and wake up a bit. On the way back down the trail I had a seizure. If I did not stop I would have been coming down the pass when it happened. worked for a campus PD while I was in college, had been unsuccessfully flirting a bit with one of our part-time clerks who was a mother twice over 22, living in Section 8 housing etc. Not a bad thing in and of itself, just providing some context. My longtime girlfriend had bounced a few months back, so I had thrown myself into my work and was advancing quickly in the department, well enough that I had a salaried slot on the horizon. Feeling good about things in general, I figured I did just roll with it when she suddenly started giving me the time of day. Had our first big night of romance coming on a Saturday night when I get a text from off course derp that just said cancel. Now, was not sure WTF was up, but I did just that. Called her up on the spot and said sorry, problem with my car. No way I could get it to a shop and out in time for our date. She did not have a car. Few hours later I swing by the PD and he told me what had happened. She had worked earlier in the day and was at the front desk, not realizing off course derp was in the squad room. You can hear conversations up front from there. He overheard her on her cell talking to one of her girlfriends about how she was going to get paid tonight, girl, followed by no, I am only like 5 weeks. He would not be able to tell cause the dates will be close. God bless you, Brian. God bless you. Meningitis, 2:30 a.m. Could not sleep. 3:30 am. I am having spinal taps done at a medical center. 2 doctors gave me 15% survival upon arrival. 24 hours later I am moved to ICU for the next 8 days. Last day in hospital they told me I did dodged a bullet Matrix style and should not be here. I had my police car pulled over off the side of this rural road, with the emergency lights on. I had stopped because there was a man splayed out in the middle of the asphalt. Turns out he was super drunk and decided to take a nap during his walk home. I had just helped him to his feet, and placed him in the back of the car to drive him home, when I hear an engine revving hard. I closed the car door, and straightened up, just in time to have my car smashed out from in front of me by a pickup truck. I felt the truck's side mirror clip my body armor. The driver was drunk, and had decided to go looking for his drunk friend. That friend was the guy I just picked up. The guy in the back seat survived the impact, because those old Crown Victorias had massive trunks. The driver went to the hospital, and in the coming months, he pleaded guilty to impaired driving. I remember the collision analysis showed that the guy hit my car at 145 km/h. It was a wild night, and I still have major hang-ups when I have to stop my police car on roadways. I had a type of bone cancer, Ewing's sarcoma, when I was 10. It usually shows up in the bone itself, which usually makes one lose whichever limb the bone is in. Mine, fortunately, started in the surrounding flesh and was working its way towards the bone. The tumor grew so fast that I only realized it when I bumped my leg against a rock that I should not have hit. The tumor was about the size of a softball. Because of finding it like this, we got to it early enough that it could be removed before it reached the bone. I still got 9 months of chemo to make sure it was all removed though. I kept my leg, although I have a large scar on the outside of my left leg above the knee running to mid-thigh, and a large dip in the same area. Also have some kidney damage relating to the type of chemo they gave me. Although things are looking up there, this May I was 6 years cancer-free, and I would have lost my leg if we would have caught it any later. Edit. Thanks to everyone that gave their congratulations, and my condolences to those who have lost someone to S. I went on one date with a girl I worked with. She was cute, but there were red flags. Some obvious, some not so much. She had been in jail and had an ankle monitor. That was probably the biggest red flag. Other than that, she just seemed a little off. Things fizzled easily enough between us. No harm done, and we did not even do anything to make life at work awkward. Then a CO worker starts dating her, and before too long both of them were not working there anymore for unrelated reasons. We end up finding out later she murdered the guy. She stabbed him like 20-30 times in the back with a kitchen knife. It was very sad. He was a good guy and definitely did not deserve to go out like that. I learned this all secondhand from mutual friends after I had lost contact with him. Was traveling to somewhere on a highway behind a logging truck. When we were going uphill, the truck changed lanes and a log slipped off, bounced between the car I was in and another car, and rebounded off the highway into the nearby forest. There was no one immediately behind us. Lived outside of Street Louis in my early childhood, woke up screaming in the worst pain of my life and then felt my face get sprinkled with something. I actually got shot in the hip, and when I sat up a bullet went through my window right where my head was just at, and what sprinkled me in the face was tiny pieces of glass, so I dodged a literal bullet by taking a bullet. Edit really expected this to get lost in the sauce, but here are some details someone else asked about. So my bed was right next to my bedroom window, parallel to the wall. The end of the bed where my head was at was right next to the window. The bullet entered the wall and struck me in my left hip, so I guess I was sleeping on my stomach. The windows were real weird now that I think about it. It was actually 2 single-pane pieces of glass separated by 6, and since both of them had a hole in them you could stick a rod in and see that the bullet traveled right where my head had just been on my pillow. Edit another side story connected to this now that I think about those windows. One time I came home from school, I noticed the inner window was shattered and there was blood all over the place. Turned out it was my dog that tried to launch herself through the window. We were pretty certain that someone was at my window scoping it out. She was super defensive of all of us. I am pretty sure this actually occurred after the shooting. Before my wife and I met, she had a single date with someone. The date went fine, but she found him to be overbearing. He pulled his dick out for her to touch as an example, so they did not go out again. They remained friendly until 2 weeks later when he murdered his next date and set her on fire. He is now in prison for those who may want to know. Edit update: he shot and killed her in front of her kids and then set her house on fire. Sorry for my partial inaccuracy. My ex-boyfriend told me he was sterile. I started insisting on condoms anyway, just in case. Eventually I broke up with him. He currently has 2 kids with the girl he started dating after me. Saying bullet ducking dodged really downplays the seriousness of this situation. When I was in my early 20s, I went out to the bar with some friends one night. My friend was DD and I was drinking. I had a very solid buzz going on when I bumped into someone I knew from HS who was clearly flirting with me. I ended up leaving my friends and catching a cab back to her apartment. The next morning I found out my friend who was supposed to DD got drunk then behind the wheel. He ended up getting into an accident and, while no one had any critical injuries, there were a few broken bones, etc. I could have very easily have been in that car. Instead I had sex with my now wife. Talk about fate. When I was back in high school, I was walking near the field when they were practicing their discus throw. One of the discus was wrongly thrown and was headed for my head. A friend who at that time was walking towards me saw this and yelled for me to duck. The discus went past my head and landed behind me. Then I realized that I could have died if my friend had not warned me. Imagine a 2-kilogram flying disc lands right on your forehead. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.